Good afternoon, Durham. Welcome to another episode of Durham Unplugged, a chance for you to meet your local leaders in a less than formal setting. Today, I have a very special guest, only because we keep passing like ships in the night. And in theory, we should know each other a lot better, but we don't. I have Member of Parliament of Whitby, Ryan Turnbull. Ryan, how are you doing today?
No, I'm doing really good. Thanks for asking.
So yeah, Ryan, I'm best friends with Mark Holland. I know Jennifer very well. Um, our paths don't seem to. I think I saw you like a few times, and it wasn't until we were both at an anti-black racism conference that we actually sat
Yeah,
at the same table together and actually had somewhat of a conversation.
that
So
was a great conversation. I remember it well. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I had a lot. I had a lot on my mind that night. But so the first question I want to ask is a really pressing one. How tall are you?
I'm 6'6".
Yeah, I
Yeah,
get that. I was telling people, I'm like, oh yeah, I got Ryan Turnbull on the next episode. They're like, hey, he's very tall, and you must hear that a lot, no doubt.
it is true. I am tall. I have many ladies in supermarkets walking up to me saying, "Oh, you're so tall," and it's been a story of my life. I'm the same height as Michael Jordan,
Right,
factually speaking, about the same weight, pretty much the same build. My basketball skills are not quite as good,
you're not there,
but
huh?
no, no.
So
Yeah, I tried.
there's gonna be no 12-part documentary on you. And
No, probably not.
okay,
No.
just checking, just checking. Did you play ball growing up? Then you must have.
I played a lot of basketball. Basketball was my sport. I played on 4 teams at once. Played rep ball. Was really into basketball until basically high school. I decided to quit basketball in my last year, which my coach was not happy about. But really, just to focus on my grades and my school.
Okay.
And I got into university probably as a result of not playing on 4 teams at once because that was a bit much, and it was impacting my my academics.
And when did
So
you hit your spurt? Did you hit it like were you like 6'6" by the age of 14, or were you still growing at 19?
I hit my spurt, I don't know, somewhere around 12 or 13. I grew like a foot in a year and was, very tall and skinny. And then I started to fill out probably 18, 19, started to fill out a little bit. And yeah, yeah.
So you were a
And
center, presumably, at your high school.
actually, we had some really tall folks in my high school. I went to school in Caledon, in Peel region, and my high school is known for quite a few good athletes. And some of the guys on my team were really tall. So I had a center that was 6'9".
What?
Yeah, and so I played third or fourth position.
Okay.
Um, yeah, loved basketball. It's a great sport. Would love to get out on the court again with anybody that's willing. I actually asked Andrew Shear if he'd have a game of one-on-one with me at one
Right.
point in the hallways of Parliament. He refused.
No dice.
No,
He's not incredibly tall, is he?
he is tall. He is fairly tall. Yeah,
Oh, is he? I guess I've never thought about the height of Andrew Shear. To be honest,
yeah.
like I'm closer to you than I am to him. So,
I just thought that
yeah,
would be fun.
I
Yeah.
would love to see that. I would love to see that. And where did you end up going to university then?
So I went to Carleton University in Ottawa. I remember at the time, I had taken some leadership programming when I was quite young, around age 15, and it got me onto philosophy, actually. So I ended up going to Carleton to study philosophy and ended up being there for almost 8 years, living in Ottawa, and going to Carleton. So I did my honors BA in philosophy, and then I found a professor that was just phenomenal, who's still a mentor, guiding light for me. And I decided to stay there under his sort of direction as my thesis advisor. So I did my master's there as well.
Cool. And
Yeah.
is there a specific philosopher you tend to gravitate towards in terms of like-mindedness? Are you a Hobbes guy, a Descartes, uh, Rousseau? These are just I took OAC philosophy, so off the top of my head, these are the only ones I can pull. Socrates, Plato, etc.
Certainly, there's lots of philosophers that I relate to. I was very nerdy. I look kind of like a business guy with funny hair, but I'm quite nerdy when it comes to philosophy. So I've studied the whole history of thought, right from the pre-Socratics. I've actually studied world religions as well. So the Advaita Vedanta tradition in the Bhagavad Gita, Hinduism. I'm big into Buddhism. I've studied quite a bit of world religions, and the reason I mention that is because it goes back a lot further.
Right.
Five or 6,000 years further than some of our Western traditions. But in terms of Western thought, Immanuel Kant, Friedrich Nietzsche.
Kant was the categorical imperative. Am I getting that wrong?
Imperative, yeah. No, you
Nice.
got that right. You got that
OAC, baby. OAC. 20
You
years later,
got it.
still got it.
Yeah. Principle of universalizability. Universalizability. It's a hard word to say. Philosophy is all about tough words.
Yeah, I was going to
All about
say.
tough words. No,
And tough thoughts too, right?
You know what really got me turned on to philosophy was when I took this leadership training as a youth, which was really profoundly impactful on my life. What I learned and what stuck with me was that simple distinctions that we can clarify and use to change the course of our life. So distinctions as simple as things like life is made up of two things. There's what happens to us, and there is what we make it mean. And you think of simple distinctions like that, and in fact, they can profoundly impact people's lives when they're able to distinguish things in different ways.
Right.
So philosophy for me was about a real practical, applied sense of being able to make a difference in my life and in the world. And I studied it with just vigor and passion. I really loved it. I took as many philosophy courses as I could possibly take. So I think I took 37 or something in my undergrad. And hung out with people that were really serious about ethics and philosophy. And that's sort of what turned me on
to politics, presumably.
Well, eventually, I mean, there's a lot that happened in between university and getting into politics. But
yeah. And what happened in between? What were some of the jobs you've had? Because again, I know nothing about you.
Yeah, so I came out of the master's degree in philosophy. I got a job in South Korea teaching at one of the top private schools there. It was the only job in the world that required a master's degree in philosophy. So I was actually teaching young Korean students that were around 18, 19, sort of just about to graduate high school and go to Ivy League schools in the United States, most of them. And so they were going to Yale, Harvard, Stanford, Princeton, etc. And they were all fluent in English, and they needed to be challenged at a university level. So this Hagwon in Korean, or top private school, named Cheongdam Hagwon in Korean, was basically developing what they called master's level courses. Right. So all the instructors had to have master's degrees and at a minimum be English speaking and be able to challenge the students at that level. So I actually got to develop a whole curriculum in philosophy that was taught across 50 schools in South Korea. And I spent 3 years there, had an amazing cultural experience, learned so much from living and being entrenched in another culture that was quite foreign to me at the time.
Yeah.
And it was just an enriching experience. I left there and went to London, England, and then worked in the research office. I was the ethics governance coordinator, research governance coordinator. So basically I oversaw clinical trials and all medical research at the University of London, St. George's Medical School, which is in South London. So it's one of the branches because University of London is quite large.
Right.
But I oversaw all the medical research from an ethics perspective. So, in Canada, we have the Tri-Council policy statement. In the UK, they have an ethics sort of governance framework for all medical research that kind of governs as a policy over all medical research. And it's quite a complex process. We've adopted the same system here in Canada. So it was a practical application of my philosophy degree in terms of teaching ethics and then applying it in the real world in a university environment to help oversee clinical trials. There's a lot of interest groups that come into play there.
I'm smiling only because, like when I got my BA in poli sci and English, my parents were like, "Well, you're going to work retail for your whole life." I had, my parents weren't like traditionally strict Asian, but they were just like, "You should be a lawyer or a doctor for sure." Like I got
Yeah.
not pressure, but they're like, "You should be." So it's funny to say that there's a practical application for philosophy because I never would have thought there would have been one, but it seems like you did okay for yourself in the grand scheme
Well,
of things.
that's what my whole family said the same thing. Well, what are you going to do with a degree in philosophy? And at the time, I didn't really know.
No one knows.
Well, no, you don't know as a young person, but I always encourage young people to follow their passions. I had a real passion for philosophy. I studied it and got so much out of my 2 degrees, and then it led me to travel around the world, uh, teach and work in university environments, and then eventually I came back to Canada and I opened my own business, which was a social innovation consulting company, and I was the CEO. I ran and developed that company for over a decade, did 350 projects with nonprofits and charities across Canada and businesses and governments, all levels of government, and all on, social environmental issues, economic development, etc. But, I worked for a decade in all of the issues that matter to Canadians, and I was the CEO of a company. So I have,
A
you
small
know, I ran,
business experience.
I have small business experience. I grew a company from, I think I had $160 to my name when I opened it to, a successful mid-sized consulting company. So, and that's what led me into politics, right?
Right.
Is all the work that I did on the ground with community groups on the issues that matter to people, from children's health and nutrition to gender-based violence prevention to diversity and inclusion. The list goes really on and on. I can't even recount how
Got all
many
of it, right?
different
Yeah.
issues. Yeah, I worked on youth hostels, and I worked on social enterprises that offered mobile sound recording studios for youth as almost a stay in school initiative, where urban arts group in Jane and Finch area would go into schools and take in these portable sound recording studios and help kids create their own music
Right.
as a module that could plug into the curriculum and really keep kids engaged. Like the stuff I've worked on is quite unique, and it all is around, like, social innovation is a thing, yeah, around the world and in Canada. And most people don't really know too much about that, but it's really an area that I spent over 10 years of my life both developing, sort of methodologies in that area, and really moving communities forward on all kinds of issues. So I'm quite passionate about that. And the more I learned, the more I realized policy was a key tool that, if it wasn't in place, if we didn't have good policy, it basically stifles the
Right.
kind
Of
of
course.
creative solutions that we see in communities.
And I'd be remiss if we didn't talk about your election path because, my God, if I'm not mistaken, from your like nomination to E-Day, it was maybe a month. Am I over guessing there? Was it like 5 weeks or?
It was like 5 weeks, I think, or something.
And like
Yeah.
under ideal circumstances, like elections are like a grind as is, but yours was such a compressed grind. Did you understand the breadth of what you were taking on at the time? Were you just like, oh my, like, were you ever overwhelmed, or was it just you were constantly so busy you didn't have time to feel overwhelmed?
Um, I guess slightly overwhelmed, but I'm just, my personality type is I tend to dive into things when I feel it's right. I dove into philosophy and I lived, eat, breathed, and socialized it for the 8 years that I was in university. I did the same with teaching in Korea. I did the same with running my business for over a decade. Um, I don't shy away from the hard work, except, really, I mean, yeah, did I really know what I was getting myself into? No, I hadn't
No,
done
of
it.
course not.
Of course not. No. Would I have done it if I had known? Yeah, I probably would have still, because it's been very rewarding, very fulfilling. The sheer rush and energy you get from winning an election is enough to fuel you for quite some time. Um, it certainly wore off quickly once I got into Parliament and I saw some of the more partisan stuff that I think holds us back in this country, which
Oh
is
yeah.
not my favorite part of politics. I'm really in the game of politics sheerly to make a difference. And I think anybody that really knows me knows that that's what I'm about. And if I would gladly walk away at any moment if I didn't feel like I could make a difference. So
Right.
to date, I feel like I have been working hard, making a difference in multiple ways, and to me, that makes it rewarding and fulfilling enough to keep going. Even though there's lots of trade-offs in terms of lifestyle, family life. There's a lot involved, as you know, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, like, no, I mean, I know only through my friendship with Mark. I don't experience it myself. I'm a regional politician, so I get to stay home. I don't have to go to Ottawa, 3 to 5 days a week and be away and then come back for weekends. And during those weekends, you're doing events. So, like, I would argue, more of a work-life balance for you than you. But so your life right now, you're married, if I'm not mistaken, with two daughters?
No, I have one daughter,
One
and
daughter.
yeah, we have a nephew who's like a son to me. His name's Ryan. So I have my daughter Alexis, and my wife is Suze. She's an incredible woman, and yeah, I bring up my nephew because he lives in Ajax with his grandmother, but unfortunately both his parents passed away.
Oh, okay.
So he's like a son to me. So I
Sure.
think yeah, we're hoping one day he'll come and live with us eventually.
In North Ajax, South Ajax?
So I guess South Ajax, yeah.
Mm, I won't hold
Yeah.
it against him because
Okay.
I'm obviously the North
Yeah.
Ajax counselor, but it's it's become such. I'm obligated to ask now whenever someone
Oh,
says they live
really?
in Ajax. I'm like, North or South? I'm like, get out of
Okay.
your South. No, but
Yeah.
obviously I tease. No, that's great. And how old is your daughter?
My daughter's turning 9. She's 8 now, and she's actually here today with me at the office for a bit. Yeah, she's volunteering.
Are you punishing her? I was gonna ask. Is
No,
she
no,
in trouble for something?
no. Mom had some stuff going on today, so we're a very family friendly environment here,
Of
and
course.
hoping she can help out and stuff some envelopes or just help us with some stuff. And I think it's good for her growth and development. She's so aware of what's going on in the world today as a result of probably us being so involved in things,
Sure.
which I I kind of I'm kind of happy about that. I think it's
Right.
good. Yeah.
And how long have you been married for?
Just about 10 years. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. And
Yeah.
so did you meet her in South Korea then, or did you meet her when you're back in
No, I
Canada?
met my wife in Toronto when I came back from London, actually, and just was sort of opening my business. I met my wife; she was working for a financial company in downtown Toronto, but previous to that, had been a sports announcer. She was worked for Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment,
Oh,
and
cool.
yeah, she hosted shows on TV. She was
Oh, okay.
really
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, she's an amazing woman. Wow, she's had three careers and been highly successful in
At
every
all
one
of
of
them.
them.
Right.
Yeah, everything she does, she's successful at. Yeah.
Now, do you remember what you did for your first date? Now, coming
Yeah.
from London, did you do the Madonna thing where you started speaking with a British accent, like unconsciously, or did you were you strictly like, no,
No, I learned from living in London. You just don't do that
don't do
because
that. No, it's a faux
no,
pas.
no, people really don't relate to you very well when you fake an accent because they could see right through it so
Yeah.
quickly. Um, but no, we went to a local pub and just hung out and talked. It was the Hideout actually in Toronto. I don't know if you know that
Yeah, of
place.
course.
Yeah. So that's where we met, and we had just talked all night long and had a few drinks together. And
Did you
uh,
meet online or through friends? How'd you guys
oh,
meet?
we met online actually. Yeah.
Perfect. Which site did you use? We used eHarmony at the time.
We used Plenty of Fish.
Oh, POF. A
Yeah.
free one, if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. And my wife sort of found me on there, which was kind of unusual. And we started talking before we even saw each other's pictures.
Oh,
So that
okay.
was kind of interesting. So she was a profile with no picture, and
That's always, I mean, no pun intended, fishy, right? That's always a gamble when there's no picture associated to the
well, you
profile.
don't know whether you're going to be attracted to to person, but yeah,
Or if you're going to be catfished, right?
yeah, well, yeah. So I mean, we hit it off right away, but through dialogue. And my wife is anyone that knows her knows she's a real talker. She has the gift of the gab. She
Right.
can, yeah, she really. I'm a little more introverted than she is. And anyway, we hit it off really well. After 4 or 5 days, I think I knew that she was the one.
Now, did you
Like,
recognize her from television when you saw her, like at the pub? You're like,
no,
oh my
no,
god,
I'd
you
never
didn't really
seen
watch.
her
Right,
on
right.
television because I was away for quite some time. Like I was in Korea for 3 years. I was in London, England for about just over a year. So I was sort of kind of away for quite a while. So I wasn't really paying attention to North American TV, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
And did she work
But
for Sportsnet or TSN? I'm assuming one of the two, right?
she worked for Maple Leaf Sports and
Oh,
Entertainment.
MLSE. But
Maple
uh,
Leafs. She was a Maple Leafs reporter.
got
She,
it, got
she
it.
reported on the Leafs. Yeah.
So for like a Maple Leaf TV, right? Like that
Yeah.
cable channel. That
Yeah.
is so cool, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
I know she knows more about hockey than I do.
yeah, I was never a hockey guy growing up, and
Okay.
that makes me a pariah in certain parts of the Ajax because
Yeah.
hockey's really serious. But yeah, I was more of a basketball kid or football kid growing up. Not
Yeah.
that I played, by the way. I always wrestled and played rugby of all sports. I was
Oh
a
yeah. Yeah.
stockier kid and
No,
liked
sports.
wrestling. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Those are good sports. Yeah.
Um, Now, some of your interests? So yeah, you finally get time to wind down, and what do you do for fun? Are you a TV
Uh,
watcher,
I'm,
podcast listener? What do you do?
I'm an avid backyard gardener. I have some.
Really, you have a green thumb, huh?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I love growing my own food in my backyard. I started, so I've been heavily involved for many years in sustainable food systems, local food systems, and just just love getting out in the garden. And I've built all these container boxes for my gardens because I have so many rabbits in my backyard in Whitby. It seems like we have a very, you know, uh, what's the right word? Just an influx of rabbits. We've got a lot. We've got a lot of them. They're taking over.
They're an
Anyway,
invasive species.
yeah. Well, I mean, it's fine. I mean, I'm sure the hawks appreciate it, but for my garden, it's not so good. So I put my garden on stilts. I built these container boxes that are on stilts. I also like doing carpentry. I like working with my hands. I was a stonemason for years while I put myself through university.
Of
My
course
parents
you
helped me
were.
out a bit.
Of course you were.
Yeah, yeah. So philosopher and stonemason.
Stonemason, gardener,
Yeah.
small business owner. What haven't you done? My God, I feel so inept compared to you.
No, why? Why would you say that?
Well, I'm horrible. Like my wife, it's a joke. Like the best I can do is like IKEA furniture, and even that takes me. I'm not joking. Like a shelf will probably take me the better part of an afternoon because I'm very a stickler to following instructions. So
Oh,
I
okay.
get all the screws like exactly where they are, and I'll go like
Right,
one step at a time, triple check. Yeah,
right,
it's
right. Yeah.
embarrassing. Whereas I'm sure you could put together like half an hour, right?
I don't know, but yeah, I mean, I
No,
find
you
it.
wouldn't even do IKEA. You would make it yourself. You would make your own shelf, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I mean, I confess I make some stuff myself, but not everything. I mean, but yeah, to your point, like there's stuff that I don't do though. Like, I don't do electrical work. I don't do plumbing. I'm horrible at it. I've tried and I
Right.
mess it up every time. I once changed some light switches in the house and totally messed it up. Thought I followed the instructions perfectly just to put dimmers on
Yeah,
things.
yeah,
Like a dimmer, it's nice. I don't like bright lights. So put dimmers on and basically nothing would work. Like no lights would work in any of the rooms that I touched. So I had to call a professional electrician to come fix my work. Cost me all kinds of money to have them fix it. Was a real headache, and so I don't
Never
touch.
again. Never again. You
Never again. Never again. No, no. Yeah.
So you're a gardener. That is awesome. I don't like bugs. I find like I'm quite arachnophobic. So if I see a spider,
Okay.
I will tell
Yeah.
my wife to kill said spider. And it's
Okay.
weird because like in Chinese culture, well, it's like this thing where it's like I don't like the spider, so you're just like kill the spider. But then in
Right.
Chinese culture, it's like incredibly bad luck if you kill a spider. And
Right.
so I'm torn. So it's like if I see a spider in one of my rooms, my house is like if my wife doesn't kill it, the spider now owns that room. I've now ceded territory to that spider. Like there's no other option, right? Because I don't want bad luck. So
Right.
I'm a pretty practical person, but I realize these ingrained like superstitions have stuck
Right.
with me through my 39 years, and
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
not going anywhere. So I just accept them now.
Yeah. It's interesting that when I lived in South Korea, they had a lot of I'm not sure if it's superstition, but it's certainly close to it. Like we talk about astrology and what month you were born, of course, whether you're Leo or Cancer or Capricorn, and we have all these kind of theories about that. In Korean culture, it was interesting that they had a lot of the same kind of mythos about blood type and
Okay.
about couples who have different blood types. And they had all of these analysis of your personality based on your blood type, which I found very foreign and strange to me, and almost felt like superstition. But for them, they put a lot more weight in that, whereas we seem to put all this weight in your
Stars.
astrological sign, yeah,
Right.
which is equally as
Equally,
kind of
yeah,
strange when you think
ridiculous.
about it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's all relative to your culture and context, which is something I learned in Korea a lot.
Did
Yeah.
you find that you and your wife have matching blood types according to the Korean folklore, or no?
I actually never looked it up. I should probably do that one
Just out of
day.
curiosity, if no other reason.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I should look that up. But no, I haven't ever checked because, again, it just always felt like a bit superstitious to me.
And do you
Yeah.
feel you still have some Korean in you? Like, I assume you picked up the language a bit when you were there for so long.
Yeah, yeah. I definitely can speak a little bit of Korean, probably like 10 to 15% of the language
Right.
at max. I can get by, I can order food. I can say hi to someone. I can kind of be respectful. I can thank people for things. I can kind of, if I was to get in a cab, I could probably direct the cab driver to where I
Where to
need to
go?
go. Things like that, very basic things. It was quite challenging of a language, like interesting to compare it to Chinese, where you have like 50,000 characters and highly complex. Korean was developed as being a very simplified Chinese, for mostly for people that were illiterate at the time. Anyway, so Korean's actually quite easy to read. There's a lot less characters. The actual symbols correspond to your mouth and how you pronounce it.
Okay.
Yeah, so how you form the actual sound. And so it's quite easy to learn in comparison to Chinese. I tried. I mean, I did my best to learn. But
Do you know Chinese as well, or no?
oh no,
Okay.
I wish
I was
I
like,
wish I did. I mean,
if my mom was watching this, she would want to adopt you as her son. Forsake me if you
yeah,
knew
no,
Chinese. I was like,
I have
damn.
friends that learned Chinese, and it's a long-term commitment to study for many years. I think to really understand.
Well, if it, like for me, the only way I picked it up at all, like my grandma would try and teach me in afternoons, and it would never take. But back in like the early '90s, Hong Kong cinema became this resurgence, like this huge thing, and I would watch a lot of Chinese movies, but read the subtitles. But
Right,
just through osmosis, like just being exposed to it, I would actually pick up a bit of Chinese. So I think most of the Chinese I learned was from Hong Kong cinema in the early '90s. Unfortunately, that is now gone as well. But yeah, I'm pretty much restaurant Cantonese is the extent. And I have the useless Chinese, as I tell people, because now everyone speaks Mandarin, and like
right,
the majority speaks Mandarin, and I speak the Hong Kong one. So I'm literally
right.
the most useless Chinese speaker ever, as my mom will tell you many times. Uh, so what is your I always ask, what's your favorite movie, favorite book, and favorite song? These are the hard questions now, the hard hitting questions.
Yeah. So favorite book, I guess, at this point right now, the best book I've read is From the Ashes. One of my best friends growing up was this gentleman named Jesse Thistle, who's written a book about his being indigenous and homeless and addicted to drugs, and he's sort of made his way back. It's a top bestseller, and for good reason. It's an incredible story about his life. And so
And you
he
knew
was,
him at that point when he was going through all these struggles.
well, no, I grew up with him. At the point that I went to university, he went to
Oh, he went.
Vancouver
Okay.
and got addicted to drugs and was living on the street and became homeless, and then got involved in crime and had a life that took a really different path than mine. But he had, he's a Métis man that had a mother and father who were, I guess there was intergenerational trauma there. that they experienced as kids, which is, illustrated in the book quite dramatically. And I highly recommend this book called From the Ashes by Jesse Thistle. And I mean, I don't even want to give away the story. It's just
No,
so
yeah,
incredible.
see it right now,
It's
yeah.
it's honestly, I put it up there with The God of Small Things by Arundhati Roy. I don't know if you've read that book,
No.
but oh my gosh, incredible book. Incredible book. Anyway, Jesse is just an amazing writer, and has the story of overcoming so many things that were working against him in his life, right from a young age of being, experiencing this trauma, and being dropped off on his grandparents' doorstep by his mother at a very young age. And that's when I got to know him, because he was in Brampton on the same street as me, a few doors down. Him and his two brothers were dropped off one day, and all of a sudden I had three new friends.
Right.
And unbeknownst to me, they had experienced all this trauma, and
Before they even got there.
they were unruly boys. But so what? All boys, on my street were kind of unruly, and we played street hockey, and we did all the things and we grew up together. We were like best friends. And, his life took a different path, but he's made his way back, and he's now a professor. Just incredible story. I highly recommend that book. So anyway, you asked me favorite movie.
Are you mentioned in the book at all? He's like, oh,
I am. Yeah, I am in the book, and my father's in the book a couple times. Yeah.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. And one of the things when Jesse resurfaced again after almost a decade of me not hearing from him at all, he was at his grandparents' funeral, who had been like parents for
Parents
him.
to him, right?
And so we caught up a little bit there, and then he reached out to me afterwards to thank my dad and I for teaching him some of these philosophical distinctions. Because he said that they helped him come back when he was in jail and he was at his lowest point. He remembered a couple of these distinctions that I taught him when I was 16 years old. And I just taught him because I told him about what I had realized in this leadership course that I took. And he remembered it 10 years later when he was in jail and addicted to drugs. So anyway, he says for him
what kind of 16-year-old espouses philosophy to another 16-year-old? I'm just joking because, at 16, I was talking about girls.
Yeah.
I was talking about the Raptors. I was talking about really base things. And here Ryan Turbull's talking about philosophy. That is, we lived very different lives.
I had maybe a strange upbringing. My dad was a homicide detective. I had an uncle that was an entrepreneur. I had influences on me like every other kid. I talked about all of those things too, but I happened to have an uncle that said, hey, there's this course that is really great. Would you be interested in taking it? And he told me a little bit about it. And so I ended up going and taking this leadership program, and it was just incredible.
You remember what it's called? I mean, you've mentioned this like 3, 4, 5 times now. Do you remember?
It's called the Landmark Forum.
Is it still available now?
Yeah. It's been around for since the 70s, actually. And it's world renowned. Was developed from the S training. It's like almost group therapy kind of thing.
Sure.
But it's not, some people look at it and get concerned, it could be like a cult or something like that. But honestly, it's just almost like a self-development course. I was one of the youngest people to take it, and I took all 3 of the courses that kind of correspond with what they call the curriculum for living, and a really profound impact on my life. I like to say, blew the roof off my life. Like, if ever I thought I was limited, it sort of taught me that it was unlimited. Like, whatever I wanted to do, I could really, really do.
Right.
And so, and that's proved, really helpful.
Yeah, I mean, you've like every phase of your life, you kind of keep referencing back to this. So clearly, it had some impact.
I can actually see how it's actually opened up the possibility of every phase of my life has been a result of kind of this, this way of thinking that allows me to access, things that I didn't know that I was capable of. And I think it's healthy for everybody, right? And Yeah. Anyway, so it's really really been impactful, that course, and even impactful on other people that I never would have even thought. By me having a conversation with my best friend at the time, his life course would take a different path, but he would come back as a result of one small distinction that we talked about in one conversation, 15 or 20 years beforehand.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Like, anyway.
Sorry, and very quickly, because I don't want to take up too much of your time. Favorite movie?
Um, Let me think about that. I don't know if I had a favorite movie. I'll say, like, I love the Karate Kid
Yeah.
movie. My daughter and I watched those recently. She was, for whatever reason, reluctant to allow me to pick a movie because she just wanted to watch other things or cartoons or Descendants or something. And so I got her watching Karate Kid, and she just loved it. So re-experiencing my favorite movies like Back to the Future and
With your kid is amazing,
with
right?
my
Yeah.
kid, it's just amazing. Yeah, really, really am enjoying that.
Have you watched the sequel, Cobra Kai?
No,
So
no,
it's on.
but
I think it's going to on Netflix soon. It was on YouTube Plus or
okay,
whatever. But it's like in its present time, and it's from the
okay,
point of view of Johnny and him going back to the Cobra Kai. And Johnny's
yeah,
like the protagonist, and Daniel, in a sense, the antagonist. It's pretty good. If you like the Karate Kid, I would give
yeah.
Cobra Kai a chance for sure. Yeah,
Okay, I'll check it out for sure, and maybe my daughter will like that too.
yeah. And then
Yeah.
finally, favorite song or favorite music genre?
Um, I'm a bit weird. Like, I really like Chinese classical music. I
You
listen
are
to it.
weird.
I almost
Wow.
I almost listen almost every morning. I listen to it. I love the sound of the flute and
Hmm.
the kind of harp.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and bending the strings. I believe I found the roots of the blues. I've always loved the blues. I like indie rock. I really love music. I play guitar. I don't play that often anymore because I don't really have the time to practice. But I really love music and art, and so I have some eclectic tastes in music. But I can talk about all kinds of stuff that I really, really like. But just right now, what comes to mind is that Chinese classical music that I listen to almost every morning. Gives me
You're
peace.
really making me look bad in front of my mom right now. Just so you
Oh,
know, you're gonna get a
that's my
call from her,
objective here.
and she's like, "You're who I wanted my son to be."
Yeah, yeah. That's
Um,
my prime objective here. Make you
yeah,
look better
you
on your
did it, buddy. You did it.
mom.
Is there before we go, where can people reach you on? Oh, sorry. Before I ask that, is there a small business in Whitby or a restaurant or a nonprofit you want to give a shout out to?
Yeah, so Feed the Need Durham is a nonprofit I would give a shout out to. They've done some incredible work. What's great about them is that they've become kind of a food hub for distributing donated food to all of the food banks, and they've really stepped up their game during COVID-19. So I want to give a shout out to them. There's many other incredible nonprofits and charitable organizations in Whitby and across Durham that are doing great work, but I'll just mention that one for today. In terms of restaurants, I have three that are
Okay.
really high on my list. So Mia Mama at the corner of Garden and Roslyn. It's a relatively new restaurant, and it's Afghani food.
Okay.
It is incredible. I go there at least once a week just because I'm almost addicted to their salads. Incredible food. Another one is Kavona Pizza, which is by far, I think, the best pizza in Whitby. I order from there anytime I order pizza now. I
It's
order
from
from
Kavona. Is it
there. Yeah,
Kavona?
I think it's Covon.
Okay. Got
Yeah,
it.
yeah, and they're on Byron Street, right by the Legion,
Okay.
the Whitby Legion. There's two Legions in Whitby. There's one in
Right.
Brooklyn, one in downtown Whitby. It's the one in downtown Whitby that the pizza shop is right next door. Charminar Indian Cuisine is another restaurant. One thing I like so first of all, great food, and then they actually offered free meals to frontline workers during COVID-19.
Oh, great.
So I'm really really impressed by them and
And
their
that's
commitment to the community.
CHARMANAR.
Yeah, CHAMINAR. Charmini. Yeah.
Great. I'll update that.
Yeah.
And where can people find you online?
So we have like every, Turnbull Whitby.ca is the website, but we have a website, we have a Twitter, everything is Turnbull Whitby. We have a Facebook
Nice.
account.
Keep it simple,
So
right?
we try to keep it all simple and all the same. We've been sending out householders. You can call our office at any time. I'll just give you the phone number for the office,
Sure.
and I have multiple phone numbers, so bear with me here just to make sure I'm giving you the right one. So it's 905-665-8182, and we're available. And then also Ryan Turnbull at parl.gc.ca is the main email address. We triage that email address every single day, and we really try to get back to people. One thing that I'm really committed to as a representative of the people of Whitby is just trying to be as responsive as possible. It's tough because we're getting hundreds and hundreds of emails in a day, and phone calls. So it's tough to get back to people within 24 hours kind of thing. In my business life, when I was the CEO of a company, I had a commitment to my clients that, if you emailed me, like, I'd get back to you within 24 hours. In this political environment right now, it's hard to have that standard.
4 to 48 now, right?
Yeah, it's sort of more like 48, and we're really trying to abide by that as much as possible. And I think we're doing a pretty good job. I kind of do a check every once in a while, and occasionally there's emails that slip through the cracks, but we really are working hard to sort of get back to people as soon as possible. So.
Well, there's one thing I would ask as an elected official is, can you please get the government of Canada to change their email exchange to something easier, like at canada.ca. At parl.gc.ca. It's always like first name dot last name. So your email is like so huge, and one mistake and the email goes to the ether, right?
True.
So
Yeah.
I implore you, please just keep the email simpler if possible. That's the only thing I ask as a,
Okay. All right.
as a citizen. Ryan, this was an absolute pleasure. I got to know you.
Yeah.
I got to know everything there is to know about you, and it made me feel a little insecure about my life. I'm not going to lie to you, but thank you so much for joining us today. It was a ton of fun. And if there's anything, you can reach me at your voice for Ajax #4. And if there's any other questions, comments, concerns, I'll leave it on the comments section. Don't forget to like and subscribe. So on behalf of MP Ryan Turnbull, I'm your host, Sterling Lee. Thanks so much for joining us.